Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani. Welcome to another episode of Matt Chat. Today, I am happy to be joined by the Vice President of the St. Louis Sports Commission, Mr. Chris Roseman. Chris, thanks so much for the time. How are you today?
Fantastic, Dave. How are you today?
I'm good, man. We survived nationals, and you had a bunch of events here in the last 6-7 weeks in St. Louis, correct?
Yeah, we did. Headline, of course, by the NCAA Wrestling Championships, but we in that period of about 30 days, we hosted 3 national championships for the NCAA. We had women's Roseman 4, which is hockey, and then we had the NCAA Women's Gymnastics Championships a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was actually down at Union Station. I saw the Penn State girls there and a bunch of the teams milling around. So from what I could tell and, watching social media, it looked like all 3 of those events were very successful for you and the Sports Commission.
Yeah, well, it's the Sports Commission's the top of the pyramid, so to speak. But, you surround yourself with great people on your staff and your volunteers and your key people, your venues and hotels and things like that. It gets a lot easier, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I want to dig into today. I think, obviously you're more than aware of the fact of the recent announcements of who is going to get the Nationals for 2019 to 2022. And I appreciate you coming on at such an opportune time because I really want to kind of go into, for those of us, and I feel like I know about what 1% of your job actually is, but for those of us that know 1 or 0, kind of explaining to the people that are listening some of the things. So I guess my first question is, what does a sports commission actually do?
Yeah, well, their sports commissions are built differently throughout the country. They're funded differently. Okay. And in this case, the St. Louis Sports Commission is a nonprofit private entity. We get no public dollars, and everything we raise, we have to raise ourselves and support ourselves each year. So that could be a little bit different when you compare yourselves across sports commissions in other communities that may benefit from various revenue sources such as hotel taxes or maybe city support or state support or chamber of commerce and things like that. But in our case, it's a very entrepreneurial type of organization. We're 10 in the organization, and we have a foundation as well. And, we have to go out and bid for and events and then produce those events to the highest quality and build up that reputation. So, hopefully we can get more back. And, with the recent success of those 3 championships that we produced, every one of them was, a grand slam. We were lucky enough to get 13 more NCAA championships in this bid cycle.
Wow. Wait. You got 13 different events in the 2019 to 22 bid cycle. Is that what you just said?
That's what I just said. Yeah. Headlined, of course, by the NCAA Wrestling Championships. We also have the NCAA Basketball Division I. We have Division II Wrestling comes back here again. Nice. With Maryville University and Coach Denny. Nice. And then we have some Division III championships as well. So we're going to have a full plate. And like I said, before, we're only the tip of the iceberg. I mean, there's only 6 people on staff, plus interns that work their tails off to make all this happen. But it goes far beyond just our staff, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know you're very quick to deflect credit and compliment the people around you, and I really want to get into more of that of how you guys build this. So, but what I think you kind of answered my next question was, what's the difference and similarities of sports commissions around the country? And it sounds like it's whether it's a profit or a for-profit or a nonprofit, and whether or not it's one of those things where you get tax dollars and all those kind of things. Are those the primary differences?
Yeah, some sports commissions are built differently. They're not built as deeply or with the event experience that we bring to the table. We're a full service shop. We could take an event and we could take the risk position on an event, or we could just simply support the event. But in the case of wrestling, we take the risk, and we take charge of the operations with the NCAA, of course, and their fine staff. But the marketing, the selling of the tickets, the fan experience, the student athlete experience, the accounting, the legal, the whole thing, was what the St. Louis Sports Commission's approach is. And while some other sports commissions are maybe more of a facilitator, where they kind of, can introduce you to the right people to make the right things happen. And so, some of these championships are driven by the schools. Some are driven by the venue, where they take more of a lead with it. So in our case, we take the lead, but I'm going to deflect again. I'm telling you, if you don't surround yourself with a great venue and a great host like the University of Missouri, and with great volunteers and great hotels, it just doesn't happen. And with St. Louis hosting this championship 8 times since 2000, it's definitely a formula that works for us.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think everybody knows, but I live in St. Louis, and I'm completely biased towards having the Nationals here in St. Louis. And you and I have been friends for a long time, and I think your kids actually go to the high school I went to, so it's definitely a long-term relationship. But having said that, you mentioned something that was, it kind of caught me off guard. You said some events are school-driven and some events are venue-driven. For those of us that don't understand, what's the difference in how that ends up looking to us at the end of the day?
Well, if a championship is on a campus of a university, that university is probably going to take the lead on producing that event. So you've got your regional events, that lead up to the national championship, but the school they do this all the time, right? University of Missouri and Brian Smith and his staff.
Sure.
Produce many wrestling championships, and they might take on a conference championship on school grounds and make it all happen.
Okay.
That's that one. And in other cases, the venue might take the lead on it, and they might expend some resources to make sure the tickets are sold, the resources on operations and putting the whole thing together. So that's kind of what I mean. In our case, we take the financial lead on wrestling, but we definitely bring in other parties to make it all happen.
Cool. That makes a lot more sense. I appreciate it. About 10 years ago, I actually talked to the NJCAA about bringing the Nationals to St. Louis, and they sent me like a 50-page bidding document. And after realizing I would basically have to stop coaching my team to bring the Nationals here, I just kind of threw my hands up in the air and just gave up on that. What exactly goes into the bidding process? Not the hosting process, because I'm going to ask about that in a minute, but like when okay, 2019 to 2022 is up for bid and the NCAA is going to bid these multiple sports. I'm just going to focus on wrestling because that's what our audience cares about. But what goes into bidding on the NCAA Nationals? And I'm going to ask it a couple different ways, and then I'll shut up and give you the floor. Do you bid on multiple years? Do you bid on, we'll do it in the arena versus the dome, or we'll do it in either? Do you have to promise revenue up front to the NCAA? Do you have to promise improvements? What all goes into just the bidding process?
Well, it starts before the bid comes out. The approach that I always take, that we always take, is to understand what you're getting into and understand the event. I think anybody can probably put on a wrestling event and pull it off and get to the end and you got championships and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's really important to understand the sport and understand the people around the sport and understand what is required for a successful event. And, I think, by visiting the event, I've been to this event since 2000 every year. I never miss it.
Right.
Sometimes, we only hosted 8 of those. But I think it's really important to understand and to get a sense of what the coaches are looking for what the administrators are looking for, student athletes, and all the different contingencies, or all the different folks that are involved with the event. So it starts actually before the bid comes out, and then the NCAA does a terrific job of they come out with the bid process, and the last 2 cycles they've actually come out and they've bid every championship except for a handful. Like the College World Series doesn't travel around, but
right.
They've bid out every championship. So it's not just one you're bidding on. You're bidding on. We've been on a lot of events. We got 13, but you have to kind of go through and comb through each one of those championships. But drilling down to wrestling, it starts with venue availability. At Scotts Trade Center, we've got we work with our partners over there and they clear the dates and make sure Blues hockey is okay because that's their primary tenant.
Right.
And Scott Trade Center also hosts the Missouri Valley Conference Arch Madness tournament in March. So we got to work with that and make sure we play nice and make sure the Blues are. They play nice with us actually,
right.
To make sure the event works. So starts with your venue, and of course you're working with your host and making sure the University of Missouri is on board and making sure the hotels have availability and there's no huge conventions in town during the championships because we all know what the hotel demand of this championship is, and you have to have these people in as close as possible to the venue so they could walk around and enjoy the atmosphere. That's in downtown St. Louis. So those are where you're starting from, making sure those things are all kind of lined up and ready to go, and then you make sure you understand the event. You're making a commitment, a financial commitment to the NCAA that you're going to deliver. So it's a financial modeling that you have to put together to show that you know what you're talking about and you're going to hit your numbers, and a strong marketing plan and how that's going to work. And then you go above and beyond and you talk about all those experiences I talked about before, the student athlete experience, the coach experience, the SIDs, the administrators of each university, the fans, the media, all those things, and make sure you got them all locked up and ready to go in a vision for the event, if you will, to pull off when it does come. And of course, your volunteers. Can't forget about those folks.
Yeah.
I mean, my first championship, full disclosure, I'm a soccer guy.
I was going to get into that.
I got this job January 17th, 2000, and I'd never seen a wrestling event before in my life. And so thank God we've got, I think, the best LOC, local organizing committee in the country. And I took their lead and made sure that they had what they needed to be successful in 2000. And we've had, I think, probably 90 to 95% of those people are still involved with the event. And it goes well beyond the event. It's the relationships that you have with those folks, and I'll go to battle with those guys every time we do wrestling, and they make it better and better every year.
Yeah, for sure. And you said a lot of things that I want to touch on. I was just taking notes as you were talking. One of them are two things that popped up to me immediately. You mentioned the comment, the financial commitment to the NCAA. And what else popped up in my head was as you were talking about how the NCAA offers multiple sports championships and multiple venues and schools and LOCs and cities can bid on this. How, from your perception, does the NCAA look at overlap? Like, do they say, well, if we give St. Louis as an example, the Division I Nationals in 2021, then we're not going to give them other stuff? Or is it really looked at in sort of independent silos?
No. They're very strategic in what they award to the cities and what they think cities can handle. You got to remember, of course, you're not going to use the same venue, but you only have so much media exposure that you could have between the events, so you don't want to cannibalize that, and you only have so much resources you have with your staff. How far can you stretch them? So, and they know the limits of each of their cities. They've done a great job of becoming familiar with each of their bid cities and understanding what they bring to the table and what they are capable of pulling off. So, it's the venue and it goes beyond. I think the NCAA has done a wonderful job of figuring out, the best places for these cities, best places for these events, and piecing that huge puzzle together every 2 or 3 years when they do this bid process and when they do these awarding of the event. So I think they do not happen in a silo, that's for sure.
Okay. And you mentioned financial commitment is when school, and again, I'm just thinking about wrestling, and I think that's our listeners are, I would have, and I'm not going to ask the numbers, I'm not sure you'd even be allowed to tell me, but if St. Louis bids $X and city, whatever bids $Y, is that one of the primary factors from your perspective of who they decide to go with, or is it just one of many factors?
It's one of many. Yeah, it's one of the primary. Of course, wrestling is one of the NCAA championships that is a revenue producer for the NCAA.
Right.
So they've got to make sure that this one does well and continues to do well. in the future. So they have to make sure that you just don't get through it. And I think any city can probably throw out a number, but shoot, you got to live with that number. You got to make it hit. The NCAA is very dependent upon their host to deliver not only financially, but just a great championship, so that the event continues to grow and continues to get more and more eyes on it, and more kids wrestling, and develop more wrestlers for their member institutions, and make sure they're strong as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so I think you've done a really good job of explaining to folks, okay, this is all the stuff that goes into the bid. And I'm sure this is obviously all in a format, and everything's written up and goes in front of a committee. Once you win the bid, like you had the Nationals here this year, you're going to have the Nationals again in 2021. Besides the obvious stuff, like you have to have mats, and you have to have table workers, and you have to have officials, and you got to make sure the hotels are coordinated and stuff like that. What are some of the behind the scene things that people wouldn't think of, but that are really key to actually not bidding on it, but now that you've got it, to hosting it successfully?
Well, it's fun about this event. In 2000, you did everything you could just to get through it, right? Because you had 2 or 3 months to pull it off. Now, the LSU was put together before that. But gosh, that's all, mat tapes and mats and score clocks. And back in that day, we had 3 NCAA administrators on this. There was 3. Now there's a lot more than 3 that come to the table to make this all happen. And we've done a good job of recording things and kind of writing the book, if you will, right, on how to operate the event. So the fun part about this championship, and this is what I love about this championship, is you get to make it better. And we don't spend a lot of time on the operational elements of the event anymore. We spend a lot of time on the experience, of the student athletes first, and making sure they have a great experience, and then working out from there. So, we spend a lot of time on what happens, around Scottrade Center, around the Fan Fest, when, we try to build up, as you saw, this year, we try to stretch the event a little bit. We think this is a celebration of wrestling, of the sport of wrestling. So, we know people, save up and vacation times, and right, they're coming and they're going to spend 4 or 5 days here in St. Louis. And, we want to make sure we expand, beyond, or, start the celebration. In our case, we started Sunday night, with some of the events that you and I kind of worked on, and, sure, and then Tuesday night with the border brawl, and then Wednesday night we did a function, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday are the events. So, and making sure all those kind of things happen, and understanding what's important to the college coaches. This is a big time for them. They need to showcase their sport. They need to, have their fans have a great time. So the parties that happened, on Saturday and on Saturday evening are very important as well, as for people to get together socially and, right, and talk. And I know what it's like, that's the nitty gritty of the operations of the event. It's a wrestling event, right? 330 kids come in. It's big. 8 mats and ESPN, and all the operational elements are very complicated. And, but we have like I said, we have a great staff, and we got a building that gets it too. I don't know if you noticed this, but this year, session 6 was the best it's ever looked. With the way we were able to put all the chairs, bring them up to the mat, and we went to a 2-foot stage a couple of years ago. We actually bought a 2-foot stage. The building didn't own one, so I went out and bought it because we knew we were going to use that stage time and time again, because that's important for this championship. We used to be on that 4-foot stage where the chairs had to be back. So, making sure it's better, that's the most important thing. Making sure it leaves St. Louis better in 2017 than we found it, and we're going to make it better next time we have it here.
Yeah. And again, you're saying a lot of things that I think were really interesting to people. You and I have talked about this privately, but I think it's really bears repeating to the audience. Going back to, say, 2000, because I think that's where you can see massive growth or change. What are some of the big changes that have happened under your watch to the Nationals to make it a better experience for the student athletes, for the coaches, and then for the public. I mean, it sounds like you obviously focus on the student athletes first, but clearly there's more to it than that, because, I mean, there's 18,000 people attending. So what are some of the massive or even just smaller changes that are, kind of a big deal?
Well, I think you start out with the student athletes, making sure they've got a good place to practice. We've kind of gone back and forth with, the idea back in the day that we had, they didn't have a lot of, when you go to these arenas, there's not a lot of backstage space. So, one of our LSC members had the idea, let's go to the hotel. And so for a time there, we were in hotel ballrooms of the team hotel,
right,
where they literally just walk outside their room and go practice and get right back upstairs. And now we have Peabody Opera House. And so, practice space is very important to these student athletes that are here. Back in the day, there used to be a student athlete banquet on Wednesday night. Well, the student athletes weren't too hungry. Yeah.
No, that's not true, Chris. They were really hungry.
They're really hungry. Exactly. Okay. They just couldn't eat.
That's exactly
right.
That's
true.
Yeah.
So, so we worked with the NCAA to create a different system that was, that didn't require them to go to a function on Wednesday night, and just allocated that money somewhere else, towards the student athletes to give them better experience. So, there's just the matter of fact of, the team hotel used to be, we flipped them. The team hotel used to be 8 blocks away. Now it's 2 blocks away.
Right.
Where the kids can, the student athletes can literally walk up the street and, they can't take a van or something like that, but most typically walk and it's a lot easier and a lot less stress.
It's way less stressful for a coach. If you've got, instead of trying to herd cattle or cats and, get them on a bus or a shuttle and worried about traffic, you can, your timing, like it'll take 12 minutes door to door to walk slowly or something like that. Yeah. That's extremely important. I agree.
Yeah. And just, this year we created a whole new entrance for the student athletes and the coaches. We decided, these guys need their own entrance. So, they used to share an entrance with, the media and volunteers and things like that. Well, we created their own entrance this year on the Peabody Opera House side. So, for them, and then they get that personal service that our LOC gives them. It's fun to see. It's fun to see Coach John Smith or Brian Smith or, Coach Brand come in and, see our guys and recognize the faces, so I think that's really important too. So, just that personal touch and understanding what's important for the student athletes and, the media, it counts for the media too. We created a whole new, avenue for the media and, how important it is for the media to access student athletes down below after they come off the mats and, creating a mix zone, that's more operational in nature that your fans really don't care about. But, it's important to get to equip the media to get the stories out there because, in this day and age when you've got, instant media where you're on Facebook or Instagram or track wrestling or whatever it might be, it's everywhere. So it's really important to adjust to the different technology that's out there and make sure we maximize the exposure for the sport. Yeah.
And I think those are things that the people don't think about, but just I worked for track wrestling this year on the media side and to just be able to go through that area as opposed to going through the general public side and, knowing that that's how it worked. It was my first year doing that, but I followed some guys that had done it a lot longer than me and just those little things like that. And I can imagine if I wrestled in the tournament, I really wouldn't want to walk in the same spot as the media or volunteers. You're going to get bugged, get questions asked, stuff like that. And you're going over there to do the job you've spent 52 weeks getting ready for. So I think, that's I would think maybe an improvement that people wouldn't think of, but would make a big difference to the kids. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
You helped me 4 years ago with the first event we did with Randy Couture here to raise money for the veterans. And I came over, picked your brain, and you had this incredible spreadsheet of volunteers and committees and organization. You speak to me all the time about your volunteers. How important is that level of organizing and the spirit and the hard work of these volunteers to successfully hosting?
It's kind of your secret weapon. Now it's not so secret anymore.
You started it. You talked about it first, so it's okay.
It's what no other city has. It's what no other venue has. It's what no other organization has. Is 17 years of experience. And hey, when we hosted 8 times, we go every year. So it's not just me going to the championships. We probably have 10 to 15 people going every year that get together, that take notes, that say, hey, some cities do a really great job with certain elements of the championship, and we take those ideas back. They're not all our ideas.
Right.
And so, I love seeing the new stuff that's kind of out there. So, it's those relationships that each of those volunteers personally has with the event and with the people around the event, that really makes it special for us, and that really no other city can kind of copy, because of the long-standing relationship they have with. It goes beyond 2000. I mean, these people have been going to the event for 30 years,
right.
Maybe in some cases 35, 40 years. I mean, they've been going a long time, and they've seen the evolution of it. And that's probably the secret sauce. is that local organizing committee that are so committed to it, and they took that same experience. Here's what's fun about this. So in 2015, we hosted the D2 wrestling championships,
right?
And we took the same model that we had for the D1 experience for those student athletes and coaches, and put that we put it in a smaller venue right down the street at Chaffetz Arena at St. Louis University.
Correct.
And try to get that same experience. They were carpet everywhere. The presentation was top notch. We had the 2-foot stage that I mentioned earlier. The spotlights. The big crowds. We used our marketing power to make sure they had big crowds for that event, and that same LLC came together to produce that event to give that same experience to those Division II student athletes. So they're unbelievable. They're an unbelievable group.
Yeah. And I think probably, when you're in any wrestling city community, though, those people, but I know for a fact I'm, probably friends with 50 or 60 of those folks that are on your committees, and it's super impressive to look at. For people and you've mentioned this, but you're a soccer guy, but we've talked, and when you first started getting into this, I know you actually went and visited with my dad and people like that. How do you personally feel about wrestling and the Division I and Division II nationals coming here from a guy that was a soccer guy, 15, I know you're still a soccer guy and do a lot here in St. Louis, but, I feel like you're an honorary wrestling guy now. So, how has that evolved or changed for you over the years?
Well, soccer guys they're weaklings compared to what the wrestling athlete goes through. I mean, I see this, and I see, from going to going to meets and going up and meeting with Coach Smith and seeing various meets there, and just seeing these meets all throughout the country. And the student athlete wrestler the wrestling athlete period is special. It's emotional. I mean, these guys come off the mat, and sometimes when they lose, this might be their last match. It's for me, it's a way of life that I've never lived. And, for the soccer athlete and for many other athletes, you could play on the field, and then, 5 minutes later you could eat whatever you want. But, it's a way of life for these guys. And, it permeates well beyond the mat. It's one-on-one, it's a one-on-one sport that's I have the most admiration for. And these kids, student athletes are just, they're amazing. They simply are amazing student athletes, and I have the most pride for them. And you're not going to see them get the big basketball contracts and
right.
Baseball contracts and football contracts that are out there. And they're a very humble group. They're very appreciative of whatever you do for them. And I just really cherish a student athlete that's a wrestler. I just think it's an amazing sport. I really do love to watch it. I think I wrestled one match in middle school, got pinned, and that was it. So that's as far as I got. So it's not a very good topic for me, the wrestling sport, as far as my participation record. but I admire the coaches and everybody around the sport, and just the character that it builds.
Yeah.
And the character of the coaches, and what they instill in their folks, and the character and the fans that used to wrestle. I think it's just an amazing sport to be around.
Yeah, and I think that people that know you know, and I know that has to impact the bid, because you are your level of admiration for the kids, and you really care about wrestling and the sport. I think it shows. You know me, I'm a numbers guy and an economics guy. One of the things I've always wanted to ask you, and I just never really thought of it until we agreed to do this, is what is the economic impact on a city like how much will Cleveland benefit next year, and Pittsburgh, and Minneapolis and Detroit and St. Louis? Like, what's the economic impact on a city the week that they host nationals?
The studies have been done that show the economic impact is anywhere from 11 to 13, 14 million dollars on a community while it's in town.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's that's very important. That's very important for a community. Let me put it that way. But that's not what drives the St. Louis Sports Commission. That's an element that we could point to.
Sure.
But we don't make any more money by economic impact, even though it's important. That's about, those are the numbers that I've been told.
Well, but I think, and people that are listening are certainly going to be on your side and my side on this, but for people that kind of just think that, sports, and especially what they consider the non-revenue sports, like, oh, you don't really need them, it's a waste of money. Like, a city like St. Louis, you kind of split the average and say, hey, St. Louis benefited $12 million, in the month of March. That's gigantic. And I mean, the businesses in this area should be supporting the St. Louis Sports Commission. The cities in Cleveland should be supporting the Cleveland Sports Commission as they make these bids, when the impact is that huge and that documentable. So, yeah. And I think you've done a good job with that here in St. Louis. But I guess, I think a lot of people that are people of influence listen to this, and it's good for other people to actually be able to, throw a number around. I mean, I'm going to use that 11 to 14 million when people talk about, well, wrestling doesn't make any money. It's like, well, not really true. So. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It makes a lot. And, that goes to our board. I mean, a lot of our funding's private, it's the private companies here in town, and, we wouldn't be around. I came out of the for-profit sports business, and, this event, is there's a reason why there's not, promoters that do this event. It's mostly done by venues or by sports commissions or by, convention and visitors commissions that rally to bring it together. I think Cleveland's going to do a great job. They're built very similar to us. We have a huge amount of respect for the Cleveland Sports Commission, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do next year.
Well, it actually leads into the next question I was going to ask you was, what are you most interested in seeing in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and I specifically want to talk about Minneapolis and the Dome in the next 3 years?
Well, I don't know what Cleveland. I'll see when I get there, I guess. I really don't know what to expect in Cleveland. I know they have a similar setup with St. Louis, in that their arena is downtown and has hotels and restaurants and entertainment avenues for them. I did see the division back to that traveling and seeing events before I bid on them. I did go to Cleveland to see Division II wrestling championships, and it's a lot like St. Louis. I think it's going to be, it's located in Ohio. They're going to get great support from the neighboring states, and I think they're going to do great on the ticket sales. And momentum will continue. I have no doubt about it. I mean, that event will sell out.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to do great. I mean, Dave Gilbert over there at the Cleveland Sports Commission does a great job. Him and his staff. So I don't know what to expect that's any different. I guess we'll just have to wait and see when we get there as far as what they do inside the venue. And as far as the other cities, again, I'm not sure. Detroit has got the new venue. I don't know I don't know anything about that venue. Pittsburgh has hosted before. They've hosted other NCAA championships in the past, so they're a good group of people over there as well. And in Minnesota. I'm not sure how that's going to go. Minnesota's got a lot of. They're going to bring different elements to the event, and primarily in the area of space. They got a ton of space to be able to take care of the student athletes. So, they're going to be able to, have plenty of practice in that space that's on site, and they have, places for their teams to gather down in what we call the event level. So they're going to be blessed with space in Minnesota.
Yeah, and you were the one that educated me. We were talking maybe 6-8 months ago and talking about, obviously as a guy who's a coach in junior college, you're always making sure your guys are eligible. And, the wrestling is a one-semester sport that from at least that one isolated point of view, your kids can focus more on academics in the fall and focus more on the sport in the spring. And you are the one that first brought it up to me, and it's been very helpful when Andy and I do our podcast about, hey, if they do this and push it back to late April or beginning of May, that any city with an NBA or NHL team will, if they stay in arenas, will no longer be able to host. So in your mind, what are sort of the pros and cons of the NCAA, the national dates going to one semester from a host city point of view? Because, for people that don't live in St. Louis, if you chose to, if that happened, you could bid on it with the Dome here. So from your point of view as the host, as a sports commission, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is, I think the NCAA committee and the staff knows a lot more, obviously a lot more about this topic than I do. But as you mentioned, it's, the wrestling championships are go beyond Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You're moving into the venue on Monday morning at 8:00. At least we do anyway. We like to give the student athletes as much time as possible to get acclimated to the venue and get on the mats on Tuesday and, start practicing at 1:00. And so they have a day and a half of practice before the meet actually starts. The event actually starts on Thursday. So if I guess maybe you could go in Tuesday night and get it done like New York did, but it just kind of crunches your time a little bit. But as far as the venue, just as you mentioned, the NHL and the NBA playoffs, the building just can't give you the dates. 4 years out when you're in the bid process because, the Blues hope they're in the playoffs every year, which they are this year.
Correct.
So, that's the one limitation. I got to look at the time of year, is probably, I've heard this, mentioned numerous times about getting out from underneath that window or that, the microscope of basketball, that kind of affects things and takes up a lot of print and radio and TV. So the attention might be greater for the sport of wrestling if it's held in April or May or whatever it might be. So I think that's one thing to consider. The weather is going to be a little better, I would think. In between sessions and things like that. So depending on where you go, of course, but that could be an advantage to taking it to a one semester sport. So those are just. You take it to the Dome, that's definitely possible, because they're doing that in the next cycle. We're all watching to see how that goes.
Yeah. And when Andy and I were talking about this before the bid, my impression was, look, we'll be able to kind of read the tea leaves and see how serious they are about this and what will happen. And so I think it is interesting. Like, you can tell that they're at least, they're sort of probing at it. They're going to see, okay, we'll see how these guys do with the Dome and how it's received and everything else. So
yeah,
when the Nationals come back here in 2021, what sort of changes or improvements can people expect in terms of the Scottrade Center, in terms of, the host hotel finishing the renovation, stuff like that? What are like some really noticeable differences that people will be able to see?
Yeah, well, first, we know, it's no secret that we needed as a community to invest in Scottrade Center and in Union Station to make it a better experience for all. And the Scottrade Center came online in 1994, and it's had private owners throughout. It's a privately owned business or venue, and they've done a tremendous job of fielding a competitive hockey team and hosting concerts and hosting NCAA championships, whether it's wrestling, basketball, hockey, gymnastics, whatever it might be, over the years. But time has come, for this community to invest in Scottrade Center. So the city of St. Louis is stepped up in a big way, and you are probably not going to recognize many elements of Scottrade Center next time it comes through in 2021. The event level where the student athletes are is going to be completely reconfigured down there. You're going to see, new seating that's going to come on in the bowl of Scottrade Center. You're going to see a new center hung. They've already ordered the center hung, the jumbo screen that you see in the middle of the arena.
Oh, okay.
That's and I was talking to the Scottrade folks, which are working their tails off. They don't have a summer off, by the way. They're going to be working the entire summer making all this happen. So, Chris Zimmerman, Alex Rodrigo, those guys are just doing a tremendous job of getting ready for this huge upgrade that they're going to do with the center hung and making sure the in-bowl experience is better. Making sure, they're in front of the state right now as well, and hopefully they can get the additional support they need, to really, to get the venue all the way up to where we need it to be. So, that's on the Scottrade Center side. It's going to be a great experience for the student athletes down below with all the space that we'll have down there, and then it's going to be a huge experience for the fans and the media and the Wi-Fi and all the technology that they're going to invest in. So that's going to be terrific inside the building. As far as Union Station, they're probably noticed that there's a lot of construction going on over there, and unfortunately we couldn't have it all kind of done in time for this year, but it's the price of progress, and they're putting in millions of dollars into that venue to upgrade that, to make what is known as the Midway or the Fan Fest. That'll get a lot bigger. They're going
I like to call
that
the Border Brawl location, but I understand.
The Border Brawl location. Yeah, exactly. We should rename it. And then the south side of that used to be all the restaurants that we used to frequent in between sessions. The state-of-the-art aquariums going to go in there with restaurants and things like that are going to be around it. So look for a lot of upgrades at Union Station, itself as well. Hotels are always upgrading, so there's a lot of plans to upgrade hotels and different entertainment districts. Ballpark Village is going to be doubled in size. They're going, right at the Busch Stadium, they're going to double that. So that they're going to put a shovel on the ground later this year.
Wow.
To get phase 2 going there. You're going to see, there's more people moving downtown. There's more restaurants. There's more bars. There's more. And then the Arts Grounds just went under a $380 million renovation that comes online this summer. So, there's a lot of new things going on here in St. Louis, and, we totally get it that 2017 wasn't our brightest year as far as, showcasing our community, but we're going to have it ready to go in the very near future.
Yeah, the changes are really exciting, especially to folks, like obviously you, but even to folks like me that, love the city and really want to be able to put their best foot forward. So if people are listening to this, and especially if there's people in St. Louis listening to this, and they wanted to be a volunteer, they want to support, the Nationals, any of the sporting events, how do they get a hold of the Sports Commission if they want to be a part of that?
I mean, the best way is just go through our website and take a look at, kind of look around there, and stlsports.org. There's a lot of information there, and they can reach out to me personally. My contact information is right there. Send me a note and let me know your interest, and we'll take it from there. We have a great staff, and that's always willing to, always looking for help. So
sure,
if they want to visit the site, that's probably the best way to do it.
Fantastic. Is there anything else from your point of view that you'd like the listeners to know? I mean, I tried to ask a few smart questions, but is there anything I missed that you'd like to touch on?
No, I think you killed it. I mean, I think St. Louis just has a passion for the sport. Now, we're blessed geographically of where we are in the wrestling footprint, and we understand that. And but the one thing that I don't ever want to have happen is to take this event for granted. We don't take it for granted. We meet, and we're talking about 2021 already.
Right.
And we're talking about taking this up to the next level. We want to see, if it's here or if it's anywhere else, we want to see it sell out. And we want to see the fan experience be off the charts. And so I would just say that, we never want to be accused of resting on our laurels. And, the great experience that we've been able to provide, we always want to keep raising that bar, so to speak. So that's the one thing. So if anybody has, we do read the comments, those comments about St. Louis and the event are sometimes they hurt, but sometimes they're great. They love the new ideas. So anytime anyone has an idea, I'd send it along, look at our website and contact information's there, stlsports.org. Send us a note if you have any ideas about how to make the championships better. We'd love to, hear from them and work with the NCAA to make it a great event.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things about you is your willingness and almost a requirement in your personality for evolution, to continue to grow like you said, like you go to the events when they're at other places, and you're not looking at like, well, let's see if they're doing it worse than us. Like, what are they doing that we can use? What can we implement? What can be better? And I think that people need to understand that this is not something that just happened. You don't just put these committees together and 100 and however many thousand people roll through the turnstiles in 3 days. It just doesn't happen. I mean, I run that very small event comparison to what you're doing, and that thing eats up about 9 months of my life. I mean, I'm kind of happy you guys didn't get the bid in 2019 because, I'd like a chance to grow some hair and maybe go have a beer. But, I think it's just a massive undertaking. I do want to publicly thank you for all your help with the Missouri Border Brawl and helping us raise money for the veterans with amputations. You're helping us change guys' lives and men and women's lives that really deserve it. So I want to thank you for that.
Well, like I said, the sport is filled with guys like you that give back. And, anytime you see that, you want to know those people and you want to help. So we're happy to help in any way we can. And like we always say, it's bigger than the sport. It's bigger than, to have those 10 national champions and the team champions and all that. That's critically important, to celebrate those student athletes. But, the sport has a huge impact, and we want to maximize that impact on the theater.
Yeah, Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I think, people are talking about the bids, and it's funny because, a lot of people are, there's conjecture, and to have a guy like you on that's an expert in this bidding process and how it works and, the economic impact and, the pros and cons of domes and arenas and all that kind of stuff. You taking the time to walk us through that, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I'd love to talk about the championship whenever we get a chance. And we're, like I said, we're working on it for 2021. We never rest.
Yeah, I know that, man. So thank you so much again for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Chris Roseman, the Vice President of the St. Louis Sports Commission. This was Matt Chat. Thank you very much. Talk to you next week.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.